Sometimes we see strange looking things, like here in the bullet menu in Maya, the Ragdoll. Until yesterday I didn't even know what a Ragdoll was, and now I think I know it. Let's look up Wikipedia for this purpose. Ragdoll physics. Ragdoll physics is a type of physics engine procedural animation which is often used as a replacement for traditional static death animations in video games and animated films. Yeah, this is a character thrown down or falling down stairs, and he or she doesn't disassemble while dying or while falling, but loses consciousness, and therefore the muscles relax totally, but the bones of course can only move in their angles which are prefabricated by nature, so to say. So the skeleton doesn't fall apart, the knees don't bend the other way around than the ordinary way we can bend them, but the muscle pressure is zero, so the skeleton just falls down. This is meant by Ragdoll, and I think it's not implemented very well in Maya because Bullet is an extra. It's a plugin supported, maybe developed by Autodesk and Alias Wavefront in Toronto. I don't know. It's one of the 3 physical model systems here in Maya. It has active rigid bodies, passive rigid bodies, soft body dynamics. When I create a character in the scene, I run into issues with the Ragdoll because the Ragdoll representation is just too big or whatever. I don't really know. Let's close this for now. So for this tutorial, I just create a little skeleton here. We go to rigging. Here is the joints tool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And press enter. So this is supposed to be a leg. Let's raise it a little bit to the top like this, and with the root of that skeleton, that's called joint number 1, that would be the well, one of the 2 hip bones in a complete skeleton. I selected this, and now I can go to bullet and create a Ragdoll. Let's not check the option box now, just let's use the defaults. What you see here now is green objects like little cylinders with soft edges. They are only representations of something. When you go to the show menu and disable locators down here, you won't see the Ragdoll anymore. So let's have a look what the Ragdoll does. By the way, it created a bullet solver here in the outliner, so that means it's a dynamic system, and well, it just falls down, which is pretty typical for any dynamic simulation. But we can introduce a flaw. Let's go to the bullet solver for this purpose. Here in the attribute editor, we have the ground plane. We switch this on, so now the Ragdoll works. The skeleton stays the same here, but the representations of the Ragdoll bones and joints fall apart. Now what we want is, we want the actual skeleton, which we could bind to a skin. It would be a real character, so to say, in a game. A real leg with a skin and shoes, etc. And we would want to constrain this real skeleton, the dark one here, to that white one. So how do we start? Well, we pick the top joint here, which is not a joint, the top locator here, the green one, and with the key control we additionally pick the joint number 1 in the actual skeleton. And then under animation you go to constrain and add a point constraint. So the animation goes like this now. The skeleton falls down. Now let's repeat the same thing with the next joint. So this joint here, it's that one, the green one here, and we additionally select, the sequence of selection is of course important because we're constraining something to something. So the final thing is always the object to constrain. So we're constraining joint number 2 here in the real skeleton to this locator here. So constrain, point, constrained. And we do the same with the next one, which is not the constrained joint, but this one here, and up here, and we can just press G, which repeats the last command. And finally we go to the joint number 5 here, which is the locator down here, and we additionally select the joint number 5 here, and we press G, which repeats the point constraint command. And now when we run the simulation, the actual skeleton tries to follow. When we do this with a whole skeleton, it's a bit frustrating, and it depends on your graphics card, I've heard, and other things. Let's try it out. I show you a funny thing. It works quite nice on one computer, and on the other one it doesn't. So let's go to a new scene, and under Windows, General Editors, Content Browser, let's pick a motion capture object. For example, Carol. I don't know Carol personally, but slow run with an S-curve in an S-curve. So she lands in the scene. She's somewhere here. Of course, a gigantic character again. Let's pick her here in the outliner and move her back to sort of the grid. So now we select the root joint. If you select this, which is a locator basically, it's the top base of the whole skeleton. It doesn't have animation channels. It's just a container where the animation and the diverse bones are in. When you open this with a shift key, they all open all of a sudden. Lots of keys, lots of joints actually, and lots of keys in here. If you pick this, you see keys all over the place. But you need to pick the top root of your skeleton, and then you go to FX, and under bullet you have the Ragdoll. And this is the funny thing I get now. It's much too big, and it has such round balls here instead of sort of joints, but it kind of represents the skeleton and of course the collapse. So we can go to the bullet solver again, and here in the attribute editor use the ground plane. So the white skeleton here, which is not a skeleton but a locator, which is the Ragdoll, will collapse here while the other keeps running. So I don't know how to fix this to make this look better. And the whole process of parenting and constraining this simulation, which actually works very good. It shows how something collapses, a character collapses, which is not trivial at all and needed so many times in a computer game, which is always about life and death. But I think the developers of Maya and especially of Bullet need to take some more care of that Ragdoll. Have a nice day.